はい。
じゃあちょっとそろそろ人入れていきますね。 Yeah, welcome and thank you for all coming today. So we are going to start this Consciousness Club Tokyo today, but as usual, I'd like to start a little bit slowly because most of the people come a little bit, slowly. And yeah, today's speaker is Shuntaro Sasai and about In Search of Me. So before I'd like to introduce Shun, please let me introduce our Consciousness Club Tokyo. Right. And so yeah, today's schedules we're gonna start from 5, but so I like to introduce like a few minutes, and Shun was going to talk about his work around 60 minutes, and we're going to have discussion session like up to 1 hour. And what is Consciousness Club Tokyo? Consciousness Club Tokyo is the kind of international community to talk about anything related to consciousness studies. And yeah, so it could be mathematics and physics and medicine and neuro and physiology, anything related to consciousness. So we have a broad audience, including philosophers and mathematicians, and also not only academicians, but also people who are interested in consciousness studies. So we usually have a once a month this event, and the speaker should be like all over the world. But yeah, this month we're going to have like a Shun and also Kentaro from Riken CBS. Right. So we have now already 30 people. Yeah, thanks a lot. And before we move to the talk, so please let me introduce Shun today. This is my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Shuntaro Sasai. Shun started his career on studying topology of functional dynamics in NILS and functional MRI in University of Tokyo. After his completion of PhD, University of Tokyo, Shun started working on functional integration and consciousness together with Giulio Tononi, who is proposer of the proposer of integrated information theory. And after he worked on several works with Giulio Tononi, and he now comes back to Japan and working together with us in Araya. And his recent works is to combine, I think, studies to studies of like topology of functional dynamics and theory of integrated information theory from also like from a graph theoretical approach. So we have been waiting for this time to talk about to discuss this integrated information theory from empirical and theoretical perspective. So this is a great timing. So I'm very excited to welcome Shun, and let's listen to his talk. Okay, Shun, you can start anytime. Share.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your kind words. Let me share my screen now. I'm not sure how to do that. So, okay, here. Okay. Okay, so can you see my screen now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, thank you so much. So, what's this? Okay. Yeah, so thanks so much for inviting me to such a kind of great online talk session. It's a kind of really great honor to give a talk here. I actually, I'm waiting for how can I say, the opportunity to present my work here. But yeah, I mean, actually, I joined Araya like last year. I mean, probably that is almost November, so it's almost 1 year ago. But yeah, so after 1 year, I finally kind of get this opportunity to present here. So today I'm going to talk about my works about the kind of theoretical approach to identify the neural substrate of consciousness. So I have been curious about the question of the identity that is basically who am I, or the questions kind of like that. And as René Descartes famously claimed that the cogito ergo sum, or I think therefore I am, I believe that my experience makes me myself. That is my identity. And since our experience is strongly affected by our brain states or brain conditions, now we believe that it is the brain that supports me with my own experience. But nobody actually has successfully identified the actual neural mechanism of consciousness. I mean, everybody actually tries that, but I mean, basically, there is no conclusion about that. And also, there's no conclusion about this location of the neural substrate of consciousness inside our brain. So I have been trying to identify the neural mechanism supporting consciousness, and I present some of my results on this topic today. So as you already know, this identification of the neural substrate of a consciousness is one of the major neuroscientific challenges. So many neuroscientists have tackled this issue by searching the brain area or brain activity that relates to the consciousness. For example, here you can see this kind of images about the physical damage of the brains. And so the many researchers have shown that, have kind of investigated the effect of the brain damage to the consciousness. For example, removal of the frontal area. It has, the kind of severe damage of the brain, but it actually doesn't affect consciousness. And also, there is a kind of Chinese lady who were not aware of that she doesn't have a cerebral. Until, I don't know, like 20 years or something. I forgot the actual age of her, but she actually doesn't realize this because she has a normal consciousness. So basically, these two areas are not so important for supporting consciousness. But on the other hand, if you have the kind of neurodegeneration on the back of the cerebral cortex, like here, then your conscious experience is severely disordered. So basically, this evidence actually showing that this back of the cerebral cortex is very important for our consciousness. And there are other supportive ideas, supportive results from the brain activity studies, like Francesco Sicurori has already shown that the EEG activity around here, the back of the cerebrum, is significantly different between the dreaming sleep versus non-dreaming sleep. This is actually supporting this back of the cerebrum is important for consciousness. And also the brain stimulation study has also shown that the stimulation around this reddish area evokes some perception corresponding to the stimulated area, like 55%. But if, for example, you stimulated the other areas like this darkish area, then it's almost 0% that you can get this kind of evoke this perception. So, basically the results have all shown that this full neural correlates of consciousness probably is localized in the back of the cerebrum. But this actually naturally leads to the question that why these regions is so important for consciousness, but not others. So, why are the neural or the physical mechanism of such an area accompanied by the conscious experience? So this is kind of very difficult question. Because if you, for example, describe physically the system, and even if you actually succeed in that, probably, there's no way actually to infer whether the system or the brain actually is conscious from this description. So this is actually so-called the hard problem of consciousness. And for this issue, the IAT addresses in a kind of new way. So it starts from the experience itself, rather than from the physical system or brain. So the idea here is that you cannot explain why certain physical properties accompany experiences, but you can actually explain why experience and its properties are accounted for by specific physical properties. So the following this idea, IAT starts from the essential phenomenological properties of experience, which are axioms of IAT. And then the IAT infers the postulates about the characteristics required of its physical substrate. So in this manner, you can identify the neural substrate of consciousness as the neural mechanisms that satisfy the derived physical characteristics. So this is basically the axioms of the IAT. And so I'll give you a kind of brief explanation of the axioms. So there are 5 actions of IAT and also the corresponding postulates. The first action states that every experience exists intrinsically. So it exists for myself from my own intrinsic perspective. And then second action states that every experience is structured, being composed of the several phenomenal distinctions such as book, window, cell, floor, a chair, clothes, or something like that. And the third action states that every experience is specific, being composed of a particular set of the phenomenal distinctions. The fourth action states that every experience is unitary, meaning that it is composed of a set of phenomenal distinctions bound together in various ways that is basically irreducible to non-interdependent subsets. And the last action states that every experience is definite in its content and also in the special temporal grain too. For example, the content of this experience, basically the experience is this colored one, like here. And but you can also think about the experience without any color, like this white and the black one. But basically, if you have this experience, then that is not identical to the non-colored the experience. And also, you can also think about the kind of, how can I say, the enlarged, or I don't know, the moderated experience. Like, I mean, the experience of the that you currently have, and plus the kind of sensation of the blood flow or something like that. But I mean, that is, of course, I mean, not identical to your current experience that is basically this. So that means that the experience has a kind of boundary, or the whose content is kind of definite. And so IIT translate each action to the physical mechanism and postulates and what's the kind of physical subset of consciousness. So from now on, I probably say sometimes PSC, but that is a kind of abbreviation of the physical subset of consciousness. Or sometimes I also say NSC, that is a neural subset of consciousness. So, I mean, they're corresponding to the 5 axioms. There are 5 postulates according to IIT. So the first postulate states that the PSC must have an intrinsic cause-effect power corresponding to this axiom of the existence. And the second postulate states that the part of the PSC, so like now this is a system, like you have an ABC, but you can also think about the part of this ABC, like A, B, C. But I mean, IIT also thinks about this all subset of the system of the ABC. So not only ABC, but also AB, AC, BC, and ABC. So the second postulate says that these parts of the PSC must also have a cause-effect power within this PSC, ABC, corresponding to the action of the composition. And the third postulate states that the parts of the PSC must specify its cause and effect, and these parts together specify a cause-effect structure that is specific to the present experience. And the fourth postulate states that the cause-effect powers are irreducible to parts or subsets, respectively. And the last postulate, the exclusion postulate, states that the PSC consists of a definite number of components that have a maximally irreducible cause-effect power for themselves. So yeah, I mean, it's very quick explanation, but in summary, IIT predicts that every experience you have is the maximally irreducible cause-effect structure, and its physical substrate is actually a subset of a system or your brain that has a kind of maximally irreducible cause-effect power in the system or in your brain. Then the IIT proposes a measure to quantify this kind of irreducibility of the cause-effect power called integrated information. And for the subset of the system, like this AB or ABC or something like that, and also for a system level. And for subset level, it is called, I mean, this small phi, this one. It's like, I mean, the small phi. And the, for the system level, there is another integrated information that is a big phi. So basically, if you want to identify the neural subset of consciousness in your brain, you want to check the big phi for each subset of the system, and you can find the kind of maximum of the big phi as a kind of neural substrate of the consciousness, so that you can identify the area. And so there are several theories of the consciousness, but I believe that IIT provides the most promising approach to identify the physical subset of consciousness for the following reasons. So first of all, as I already mentioned, it addresses the hard problem in a particular way. So we can identify PSC, physical substrate of consciousness, based on IIT, with providing the reason why it is a PSC. And the second, as far as I know, it is a unique theory. Probably, I think there might be another theory, I don't know, but it might be kind of unique theory proposing the quantity of the consciousness, as far as I know, which is basically integrated information. And I think this is a huge advantage over other theories because you can quantitatively test the theory by using that measure. And you also, I mean, if you can actually prove the theory is correct, then you can actually use that measure as a kind of the quantity of the consciousness, for example, like for conscious meta or something like that. And there's another reason that I think the IIT is kind of better than the other theory. That is that phi has been already shown as kind of useful index for consciousness. So here there is a kind of PCI measure that is a perturbational complexity index, which is basically phi inspired index. Meaning this is the characterizing the integration and also the complexity at the same time, but that is basically evoked by the TMS simulation. And so by using this measure, Casali et al. Have actually shown that the PCI in the wakeful state is way higher than other those obtained in the unconscious states like non-REM sleep or anesthetized states. And we have also shown that phi correlates with the meaningfulness of the stimuli, which is basically, if I would say, the kind of richness of the conscious experience. So in this study, we used 3 different movies: an original movie, and temporal scrambled movie, and a special temporal scrambled movie. And subjects were asked to look at this, watch this movie. And we scanned their brains with functional MRI. And using this functional MRI data, we calculated the integrated information among all brain areas. And then we found that this phi in the original movie situation is highest, and the phi in the special temporal scrambled condition is the lowest. So the indication that is, so if you watch this original movie, you can see the lot of different scenes and also the temporal structure of the story. But if you for example, look at this temporally scrambled version, every time you see some image, but you can't see any kind of continuity of the scenes. So basically, that is just, so many images just kind of flashing in front of you. And if you look at this special temporal scrambled movie, you just can't get anything, and your experience is like just watching the TV noise. So the meaningfulness is very different there. I mean, you can see this highest meaningfulness with this original movie, and of course, I mean, you can get just a TV noise from this special temporal scrambled movie. And if I actually correlates with this kind of meaningfulness of stimuli. So I think that these results support that the integrated information is a useful measure of consciousness. Yeah, so these are actually a good thing with IIT, and so I think IIT is at least very useful theory still already. But on the other hand, there's no study that successfully identifies the maximum of the big phi in the human brain, which is basically I want to do because I want to identify the location of our consciousness or me inside of my brain. So, and actually there's a main reason that preventing to do so, that is kind of computational complexity. So, I mean, as you already seen that you have to basically calculate the small phi for all possible subset of a system. So that is, I mean, super computation demanding. So, but I mean, yeah, we want to tackle this issue. So we developed a method searching for a maximum, basically kind of approximated a maximum out of the all possible subset of the system. And even in the kind of high dimensional data set, like a functional MRI. So from now on, this is kind of the detail of this technique, the approximation. So you don't actually need to understand fully here, but let me actually share what what's going on for this approximation, because basically this is I mean the kind of new thing that I did. So yeah, basically, I mean, if you want to use the function MRI, then you want to probably think about using the kind of regions of interest to kind of reduce the dimension, because I mean, function MRI has a super high dimensionality. But if you use ROI, then probably you undermine the contribution of the local connectivity to the big phi. And that is, I think, very important, because the local connectivity tends to be kind of stronger than the long-range connectivity. So thus we developed an approximation method enabling us to calculate the big phi at a voxel level spatial scale. So this is basically the big phi formula. This big phi formula is actually different from the big phi formula proposed in the previous IAT version 3.0. This is very new, the IAT 4.0, and we are still actually developing this measure. So it's not, I mean, how can I say, the last version probably, but we believe that it's going to be unchanged so dramatically. And so this big phi formula basically consists of the product of the total loss of the small phi after the system cut, and this the first term, the all conditional probabilities obtained through small phi calculation. So yeah, let me actually explain here. So the small phi here, this one, quantifies how strongly a system's part, which we call mechanism, like this one, can constrain another part as its cause or effect, like this one. So here, if this is a mechanism and I mean, basically this causes this, so this is a kind of effect value. And so this constraining power of the mechanism over this value is measured by the conditional probability. And so that to calculate the big phi, we need to repeat this calculation of small phi. I mean, the calculating the conditional probability and the calculating this value, the small phi, and for all possible subsets. And but that is basically kind of impractical for big systems. So for example, when the system consists of 100 nodes, the number of the mechanism whose size is k, I don't know. In this case, that k is actually identical to 3, but I mean, if the system has 100 nodes, then the k can be from 1 up to 100. So I mean, and also the mechanism whose size is k, we call the kth order mechanism, and but the number of such a mechanism, whose size is k, is the number of ways to choose k nodes out of 100 nodes. So this number increases very quickly as k grows until 50 for the 100 nodes. So we cannot compute, I mean, small phi for all of them, basically. So to tackle this issue, we use the following 4 assumptions. First assumption is the number of nodes in the mechanism, the k, is equal to the number of nodes in the purview. And the second, each mechanism constrains a unique purview. And third, all possible mechanism purview sets have non-zero phi. And lastly, minimum information partition is a cut taking one node away. So under these assumptions, we can estimate the mean condition probability and the small phi of higher order subset based on the mean condition probability of the first order subsets. So this dramatically reduces the computational complexity. And I mean, of course, I mean, there are a lot of caveats with these assumptions. We utilize this method to approximate the big phi for the first time at the voxel level spatial scale. So from now on, let me share my results. I mean, of the calculation using the this approximation to the function MRI dataset. So we use this method with the 4 regions of interest to compare the big phi values, basically to kind of, I mean, roughly identify which area is important for consciousness. So specifically applying this approximation method to individual data, we estimate the big phi values within the frontal and also the back cortical areas, and also the cerebellum and also the cortical areas. And so data here is actually the resting set data from the Human Connectome project. And that is actually obtained using a 70 functional model scanner. The data length is about 1 hour, corresponding to about, I don't know, 4,000 data points or something like that. Then the big phi value strongly depends on the size of the ROI. And so we use the same number of boxes for front, back, and also cerebellum for the fair comparison. And as a result, we found this big phi is the highest in the back, and that is a kind of way higher than the big phi of the other areas like front and also cerebellum. And this is actually interesting because the front area and especially the kind of cerebral area is not, is known to not to support the consciousness. So it actually kind of makes sense that the phi in this area is kind of very small. And interestingly, we also found the big phi in the entire cortex is also very small. So this actually indicates that it is not always the case that the size matters for having the big phi. I think that rather this connectivity inside of this kind of back area is more important for having a big phi. Okay. So yeah, but this is actually kind of rough search of which area is important for consciousness, and but we actually curious about the more accurate identification of the area, the neural subset of consciousness. So yeah, we kind of tackle this issue by creating a new, the combinatorial optimization method to find the big phi max. So there is a kind of famous optimization method, simulated annealing, but that is actually too slow for our case, because we actually need to wait for a very long time to converge, and which is actually impractical, we found. So we modified this method by combining that with the coarse-graining. So the coarse-graining is like using the brain parcellation of the ROI. It's kind of similar to standard functional MRI connectivity analysis, but we first apply the coarse-graining to the entire cortex. And regarding this, each grain as a kind of one big blob of the variable or something like that, and then basically reduce this number of the dimension, and then we actually do this simulated annealing using this reduced number of the dimension. Yeah, so let me actually explain this algorithm fully here. So the actual algorithm is like first we make the random parcellation of the cortex that I mentioned, but that is basically kind of random parcellation. So that each parcellation is kind of random parcellation of the entire cortex. And then, but we did so like n parcellations. In our case, n is actually set to 40, but it depends. It can be 100 or 10. Depending on your computational power. And then, so we also use the initial prior map about which box cell is included in the subset whose big phi is maximum. But initial prior is actually max end. Each box cell can be equally contributed to the such a subset. And then, as a second step, we searched for the subset having the big phi max by simulated annealing, and then get the posterior by averaging all the subsets identified by this step 2. It's like this. So after the simulated annealing, you get this map for each parcellation, and then you average them to get the posterior probability distribution map. And then you repeat this step 1 to 3 with the parcellations at final resolution. So first I use the 10 as a number of the parcellations, but I increase this number to the 20 to repeat the same thing. But now we use this posterior probability map to for this simulated annealing. Basically the simulated annealing is using a kind of flipping of each area, randomly. And for this flipping, we use this posterior probability map. And after, basically we repeated this procedure by increasing the number of the population like 10, 20, blah, 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 and up to the 1,280. And then we finally run this simulated annealing at the voxel level using the final prior obtained with this highest number of the population. So, and we applied this method to function MRI again, the same one, the resting set function MRI from the Human Connectome project, 70 Tesla. And we got the binary map about the location of the neural subset of the complex for each subject. So the each red area shows this area of the neural subset of the complex, the subset that's showing the big phi marks of the this brain. So, so they are basically can represent the subjects, but you can see that this method kind of consistently identified the similar area as a kind of a subset having the big phi marks across the subjects, and which is basically localized in the back of the cerebral cortex. And so to get the group summary, we average the binary maps across the subjects to obtain maps showing the percentiles of the subjects whose maximum includes the corresponding voxel. So we found that voxels within the continuous posterior area, like the reddish area, show the percentile close to 100. But this percentile quickly decreases around this border of the voxel and is very low outside the posterior areas. And so remarkably, this area is very similar to the area whose activity is identified as a kind of neural correlates of the dreaming by Francesco Schiavari. And next, we examined how the location of the neural subset of the consciousness changes with the basically the kind of attention modulation or task demands. So this is basically the same result obtained using the resting set data. And we tried the same analysis, but using the different data, like the function MRI obtained during the movie watching and also during the retinal speed task. And so again, we identified the binary map for each individual, the binary map of the subset of the big phi for each individual, and get this summary map by averaging this across the subjects. And as a result, these percentile maps for the both movie watching task and the retinal speed task have special patterns similar to that obtained with the resting set data. But on the other hand, as you probably can see, already realized that the boundaries, the detail of the boundaries of the voxels with the high percentiles slightly change depending on the condition. So for example, the voxels in the some medial areas close to the kind of posterior pole around here, like here, actually kind of included in the movie watching state and also retinal speed task state, but that is excluded during the resting state. And also, if you look at the temporal area, like in a kind of auditory system area, this map shows a relatively high percentile, like yellowish or reddish for the movie watching state, but you can't actually see such a kind of high percentile for resting state and the retinal speed task. So I think that, basically the location of the neural subset of consciousness is kind of similar across many states, but sometimes the detail about the border can be very changed. And so the big phi marks is located, the conscious center in this back area across a lot of tasks. The movie watching and also retinal speed task would mainly modulate the activities of the posterior cortical areas or the visual and the auditory systems. So we are wondering if the location of these big phi marks is simply determined by the area activated by the tasks, which is not so great for us. So to test this, we use the 7 task data activating many cortical areas, including the frontal areas. And so again, we made a binary map showing the significant task activation for each subject and averages them to make a map showing the percentile of the subjects whose voxels are involved in the task. That is basically the left panel. And we confirmed that the many voxels in the frontal area, like here, as well as those in the posterior areas, are activated significantly. And then we searched for the big phi marks with this concatenated 7 task data. This is basically the new data, but applying the same approximation method to identify the subset of the big phi. And again, we identified the maximum within this back area. So that these results basically demonstrates that the location of the NSC is not simply determined by the task activation. So yeah, so far the results support the idea that the neural substrate of consciousness may reside in the back of the cerebral cortex. So I mean, we found that the border of the substrate changes depending on the situation, but it seems like that there is a kind of big core of the information or integrated information as a kind of neural substrate of consciousness, and this is kind of consistent with our or my intuition that there is only one person inside our brain who consciously monitors the world surrounding you and who does the kind of several tasks. But however, in some situations, we can also do some kind of different tasks at the same time. So for example, when we are driving on a kind of like a very familiar quiet road, we can enjoy radio shows or a conversation, or I mean, we can even call somebody while driving. I mean, it's not recommended though, but we can do that. And to do such a task, our brain should deal with two independent or multiple independent streams of tasks. Yeah, I think. And so if that is true, then it seems our brain had two or multiple completely independent task modules simultaneously. And I think interestingly, that sometimes it's pretty hard to recall how we drove to come to the destination after arriving at that destination. So this naturally raises the question like, can we actually have two or multiple consciousnesses in such a special situation? Yeah, so I'm very curious about this question, and I actually investigated what happens to the core of the information or subset of the big phi in such a situation. So, yeah, sorry, let me drink your water. So, yeah, I think most of you already know that. I mean, I'm saying the kind of crazy idea, but probably I think you know this split brain patient has kind of the two different consciousnesses at the same time, or I mean, at least they show the kind of behavior that can be interpreted as that they have two different consciousnesses. So, but let me actually share or revisit this interesting fact about the split brain before I explain this my experiment. So, I mean, as you already know, our brain consists of two hemispheres, one in left and the other in the right, and they are tightly connected to each other by the tons of the fibers called callosum, corpus callosum. And there's a surgery called the colostomy, which is done to prevent the propagation of the epileptic seizure activity throughout the brain. And it is actually known to be very effective and to prevent the propagation. But at the same time, it is also known that the patients suffer from the strange side effect called the split brain syndrome. So the split brain syndrome is described as a kind of strange behavioral state where subjects can behave as if there are two consciousnesses inside one brain after colostomy. So here's a kind of example. So when subjects were asked to read aloud what's shown on the right side of the display, they can do it. However, when the word is shown on the left side, they miss it and say there's basically nothing. But this is because only left hemisphere has a kind of language center of the brain. But the visual input from the right side of your brain, visual input from your right side goes into the left side of your brain. So, I think, therefore, basically, because the colostomy actually cuts the connection between the two hemispheres, the vocalization center can't get that information from the outside and say actually nothing. But if the subject is asked to draw the picture to describe what is actually shown on the screen, then can do it. Actually, it's like a kind of smiley face. So this suggests that the right hemisphere is actually aware of the world independently of the left hemisphere. And I actually want to show another very interesting demo. Probably, oh, it's already 40 minutes, but let me actually share this. So it's also one of the syndrome, split brain syndrome, which is called Araya hand syndrome. And basically, you can see kind of fighting between the two hands, like as if there are two different individuals inside the brain. So in this left video, the right hemisphere, sorry, so this is the right hand. So the left hemisphere or right hand is asked to, sorry, this patient is asked to use the right hand to play this puzzle. And this is basically the answer. And this is what he is trying with the right hand. And the right hemisphere is basically better than the left hemisphere at this type of the puzzle game. I mean, so basically the right arm is struggling to answer correctly. Yeah, the other side can do that immediately. So, so this is the situation that both hands are allowed to be used to solve this task. So this left is actually better. And so this is the answer. And yeah, this hand can get there, but this actually disturbing. Yeah, it's so close now. And just one more piece. Looks like cooperating, but so this is the answer, but doing something wrong, right? I mean, we can't call this fighting, but it sounds like there is a, how can I say, there's obviously no cooperation between the left and right, right? So this is what I want to show. And oops, no, stop it. How can I go next? Okay. So these results basically demonstrate that after this disconnection between hemispheres, there's no longer a united individual, looks like, and over the brain, and each hemisphere has its own individual separately from the other with private conscious experiences. But I mean, does this mean that the healthy brain is always integrated because it has a kind of, I mean, intact the corpus callosum? I think I actually doubt that because I mean we can do this kind of dual task very, how can I say, smoothly. So in such a situation, probably there might be this kind of function split can happen, and depending on the task demands. So yeah, to test this question, we do a functional experiment. So we first we got the brain activity during tasks. So we have now two different tasks. One, I mean, they are both kind of, I mean, dual task, but the first one is the actual dual task. No, sorry. The first one is kind of integrated task. So in this case, the subjects are asked to play the driving simulator while listening to the GPS instruction. So basically, they need to kind of follow GPS instruction to play that game. But for the second situation, which we call split task, where the subject was asked to play that game while listening to the auditory, story of the radio. And we also instructed that please kind of focus on the story of the radio because, I mean, they had to answer some listening comprehension task after this task. And we also have a kind of localizer task. And using this localizer task, we identified brain regions involving in the driving and the listening. Like this green area is for listening and the blue area is for driving. And we compare the integration between driving and the listening networks between the integrated and the split task conditions. So, but this is basically a demo. Sorry, demo game, but I can be quick. So in this case, the participants is actually playing this video game, but following the GPS guidance. And that is an integrated task, and we can, subjects should have a kind of integrated experience between the auditory and the visual and also kind of motor experience. And but this is a kind of split task condition. The subject is focusing on the listening comprehension, and while he plays this driving simulated tasks simultaneously, and he or she trained a lot before doing this task, so they can actually play this smoothly. But so this is a basic demonstration. So basically, the contents is very different or independent of this the driving, and so you can probably it's very difficult for you to get the kind of integrated experience between this auditory or radio and the driving. And so by using this functional MRI data, we calculated this integrated information small phi between driving and the listening system. And we actually found that the high integrated information in the integrated task condition, where this integration we can't actually see in this split task condition, that is basically showing the loss of the integration between the two different systems. So, and we also did a similar analysis using the different task conditions, like, on top of the integrated task and the split task condition, we have a resting state and also the driving only situation, the radio, listening to radio only situation or GPS situation or something like that. And we calculated the integration between two systems, and we found the loss of and the integration only during the split task condition. So, basically, this indicates that the integration between the driving and the driving and the listening systems are basically always there, but in some particular situation, like a split task condition, they actually lose the integration, so that they can do this task. And actually, also investigates the relationship between the integration and the behavior. Because the integrated task requires active cooperation between driving and the listening network, it is likely that individuals showing the high information integration better perform tasks. And indeed, we actually found a possible correlation between the integrated information and the individual driving task performance during the integrated condition here. But on the other hand, in the split task condition, we found a negative correlation, which indicates that integration between networks should prevent actually the task performance. And because this is a split task condition, you have to do the different things simultaneously. So probably integration is not necessary or even disturbing for kind of task performance. And furthermore, we examined whether each individual's ability to adjust integrated information explains the task performances in these conditions. So to do so, we first confirmed that the driving performance are actually highly correlated between these tasks, like this. The correlation is 0.93, super high. And this was reflected by the results of the principal component analysis. So we applied the principal component to get the first principal component that explains the variance, and the explained variance is actually hit the 95% or something like that. So we calculated the correlation between the this principal component and the change of the integrated information between the different tasks. And we found a very high positive correlation. And we found actually the 64% of the individual difference in this driving performance, reflected by this first principal component, was explained by the ability to adjust this integrated information, depending on the task demands. And so this is a kind of unpublished data, but I'd like to show this super rare case of the functional split. This is actually I found from only one subject, so I'm not sure this is true or not still, but because this is fun, I would say, I want to show this. So it's basically the kind of following up experiment to test whether our brain cap can have two conscious entities inside one brain, one healthy brain. So the idea is that if two systems of the brain completely split functionally, then the subjects will do two things while totally ignoring one of them. And so, probably, one can say that, oh yeah, in the split task condition, you do this, but I don't think so, because in the last experiment, we can know that happens or not only from the subject's verbal report. So we basically wanted to impose this ignorance on the subject. And for that, we designed this following visual dual task experiment. So the task consists of the two parts, like tracking the horizontally kind of moving square, like here, by moving the pointer. This is pointer, and which is presented in the left visual field of the left eye. And the subject is also have to read a story appearing on the top of these Mondorian images. Like this is, the one character, but that is actually the story. And that is presented in the right visual field of the right eye. And if you look at this stimuli, then your visual experience is like this tracking plus this Mondorian on the right. So this is a kind of controlled condition. And but we also have a kind of masked condition using the continuous force suppression. So the continuous force suppression is a well-known good technique to kind of mask image in the kind of same visual field. So for example, if you have this Mondorian image in this left field of the right eye, and then as a kind of visual field, this task and this image is overlapped. Therefore, and because this has a kind of higher kind of contrast, then this task is actually kind of masked by this Mondorian, and your visual experience is like this, just a Mondorian plus Mondorian on and the stories on top of the Mondorian. So yeah, and the question is whether the subject can still do this tracking task, during this masking situation. And so if we have the kind of conscious entity who does this task only based on the left eye information, then the answer is probably yes. And otherwise, subjects can no longer continue this task. And I actually tried, the 5 subjects tried this task, and but yeah, unfortunately, I think the 4 subjects out of the 5 failed to keep tracking. That is probably kind of obvious, but actually there is one subject who can show very interesting result when she did this for her, I think the first or second trial. So here I show this trajectory of the moving square, and pointer is actually moved by her, by using the kind of finger, and obtained from this. This is actually from this special successful subject. So the y-axis here is the distance from the first position of the square and pointer, which is basically indicating the location of the square and pointer. And so in this period, you can subject can see the both the tracking task and also Mondorian. But these blue areas periods, subject can't see the tracking task. Tracking task. Yes. And very interestingly, she can actually keep tracking under this station. The first 2 masking period, she just stopped. But after that, she resumed tracking. I don't know why. And then, probably accuracy is not so high, but she can actually make it. And then, very interestingly, after this task, she told me that, I actually asked them what happens to her. And then she told that because I couldn't see anything during this situation, I stopped moving the cursor during the mask. And yeah, she actually stopped here. And but she actually didn't realize that she resumed tracking. And so after that, she said that I also realized my cursor was moved to random positions after the mask. She said about here, actually. And she even asked that those are main hurdles of this game, right? It's kind of very crazy, but it sounds like there might be the two conscious entities. One of them is actually controlling this castle and resuming the tracking of the castle after this second the masking situation. So yeah, this is basically kind of the summary of the my results about the identification of the neural subset of consciousness. And I'm sorry, but it's still kind of interim summary. And so let me actually summarize these results. So we first identified the NSC from the first principles. And NSC is consistently within the posterior area of the cortex, and the border of the NSC can be varied depending on task states. And the NSC might be also split. I don't know, but might be split into the pieces depending on task demands. So this is basically interim summary, and the because I mean it's already 5:55. Sorry, keep talking. Or should I actually ask you to kind of get the questions? I don't know. Can I actually continue? Okay, I can continue my talk. Sorry. So yeah, I mean, so far I've shown that results supporting that the neural subset of consciousness may be located in the back half of the cortex. But then the question is that what makes the posterior so special? So there's a substantial evidence that there are many short-range connections in many posterior areas, which makes topologically organized clusters. So one of the best network models that describes the posterior area would be kind of grid-like architecture. And then on the other hand, the many frontal areas appear to have a kind of different connectivity. Although the detail is still kind of unclear, but probably there might be some kind of the grid-like structure, but there are both short and long-range connections. And the cluster-like structure is much less clear, though there might be some, compared to the posterior area. So we can say that the wiring diagram of the frontal area would be better modeled by random graph rather than grid-like architecture. So thus we try to examine whether this difference in the wiring diagram can explain why the posterior area is more conducive to hi-fi. So to do so, my collaborator Eric Chastain investigates the difference between the typical wiring diagram of the subgraphs in grid and random. And the subgraph is a part of the entire network. So yeah, so in this case, this is kind of example of the subgraph. And here we pick up 5 nodes as an example of the subgraph. And let's say the top 3 nodes are kind of a mechanism according to IIT, and that is actually considering the bottom 2 nodes. And we want to calculate a small phi based on the current state on the top 3 nodes. And the necessary condition for a small phi being non-zero is that the subgraph is closed or connected like this. And so this is not connected situation. So the phi is actually 0. But because this is connected, phi can be non-zero, basically. And generally speaking, and so this is basically a necessary condition. And generally speaking, the denser connectivity the connected subgraph has, the stronger its phi will be. And Eric found that the average density of this connectivity is kind of higher in the grid-like architecture compared to the random-like architecture. So which could explain why the posterior area is more conducive to phi. And so motivated by this, we examined if the wiring diagram of the back half is more grid-like compared to other areas like frontal using functional memory data. So to do so, we use the fact that the grid-like network shows a kind of higher correlation for nearby units. I mean, it's kind of obvious, but we actually checked that with the Ising model simulation. And so we calculate this the correlation strength, the correlation function that is the correlation strength depending on the distance. And we found that the short-range correlation is kind of higher for the grid-like architecture, but that kind of the distance dependency can't be seen with this random-like architecture, like I mean blue thing that is kind of flat, which means that there is no relationship between the distance and the correlation strength. So we think that the strength of the short-range correlation can be used as a kind of proxy of the short-range connectivity, the grid-like architecture. or kind of gridness or something like that. And then so we calculate this short range the correlation using the functional MRI data, which is basically, I think that I use the resting set function MRI, but I mean, basically the results are consistent across several different conditions. So, but I mean, the results shows that this area has kind of reddish or the higher correlation compared to the other areas like here or here. So basically that means that this area has a kind of, I mean, grid-like architecture, or I mean, more of a grid-like architecture compared to the other area. Therefore, it has a kind of higher big phi. So the summary here is that this is, I mean, so I actually, so sorry, this is a kind of summary, but it's very similar to my interim summary, but so we identified the NSC, and the reason why the back half of the back high can be the NSC is that because it has a kind of grid-like architecture, because the grid-like architecture would enable to enable the area to have a kind of high big phi. So yeah, also we have a kind of good supportive evidence for this conclusion. We just use the functional MR data, so we have to validate whether this approach can be also, our results can be reproduced using the other modalities like high density EEG. And also we have to check if this NSG is can be changed depending on the wakefulness. Because I mean, if, for example, the big, this kind of neural subset of consciousness is a location of the consciousness, then during the wakefulness, okay, there should be such an entirety. But when we lose the consciousness, then also this area should be gone somewhere, or I don't know, probably shrink to this tiny area like this. And but because I mean, while dreaming, we have a conscious experience that actually comes back like this. So this is actually what I want to do from now. And yeah, now I'm actually currently working on this. Okay, so yeah, that's it. I appreciate these collaborators that for actually give me a lot of helpful advices. Yeah, I actually want to thank for the grant that supporting the my research activities. Okay, thanks so much. Do you have any question? Or should we have now, I don't know, the break?
I have one question, if you don't mind.
Sure, please.
Hi, my name is Sohail. I'm a staff scientist at OIS in EXU, Embodied Cognitive Science, Embodied Cognitive Science at OIS University. So when I looked at some of the results that you were presenting, of course, you mentioned about this split of task and all the follow-up experiments that you actually conducted in order to see whether the task is actually having any confounding effect on the results. But at the same time, there is something very specific about this task, and they were mostly related to some sort of the affective and social aspects of the cognition. Like they were movie watching, part of it coming from the social interactions, and given that observation, and some of the studies that are coming from, for instance, studies that are related to the theory of mind, studies that are related to the social cognition, we know that the places from the parietal cortex, they get very much involved in this. For instance, temporoparietal junctions, intraparietal cortex, and all those places. So would there be any possibility that still, despite the fact that you mixed the task with certain other type of the task that were not probably much related to social, still having certain level of effect that is passing the all the tests that you're applying, and still putting more emphasis on the parietal side and making it to be more bold at the outcome of the results that you're observing?
Okay, thanks so much. Yeah, I actually don't probably fully understand your question, but So basically, your question is about this if there is a, change of the location depending on this task, right? Like, now I'm using this maybe watching or visual or
Exactly.
yeah, something like that, and that is probably kind of preferable for
Exactly.
yeah, that's actually a good question. And so yeah, to be honest, I'm not sure. I have to actually test. If that happens or not, and I'm very curious about that. But so for example, so this is actually resting state. We don't do anything, right?
Okay.
Yeah, but we can actually see this area as a kind of subset of the big five marks. So yeah, there might be other possibility like I don't know, just a kind of insular area or frontal area is included as a kind of subset of the big five marks.
Sure.
But yeah, if you look at this, probably, it's kind of difficult to exclude this area. So
Certainly.
yeah, yeah, it's very curious. So yeah, if you have any kind of data, I actually want to try that.
Sure. No, I understand. Like, no, this is just a question from my side.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
because, like, for instance, even in case of the resting state that I'm looking at, like, we know that also there is an overlap of the default mode network in that region, and the default mode network is a type of network that gets actually quite activated when you're looking at the resting state.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of IoT, and I'm not questioning the results. I'm just trying to make sure that, like, now I'm understanding what you're actually presenting, and to realize, like, how critical the results has been actually evaluated to make sure that there is no confounding effect coming from what has been known already, and what is being actually found is basically pointing us toward the right directions of looking at this parietal cortex.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yes, yeah, I totally agree with you. And so for example, the resting state is like this, and also probably I think it's still kind of not best answer. Sorry. Yeah, like this one. So if you, for example, just look at the, task activation, then, you can get the kind of, evoked activity all over the brain areas, like, including the frontal area, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So this is also kind of, support for why, the IoT analysis is kind of special to identify that area, this area, back half as a neural subset of consciousness.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but yeah, I was kind of muted. So I wanted to suggest also a short break, but you want to continue? Soon it's okay, or you want to a little bit take a drink or?
It's up to you. It's up to everybody.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, let's take 3 minutes break. So we're gonna start from again at 6:10 in Japan, like two minutes later. But so yeah, you guys to take take a coffee or and I think you can go. Yeah. So.
Okay. Should I stop sharing my screen? Or?
Yeah. Can you do that? I want to also introduce the new. So next talk. Yeah. Please take a short break. So yeah, we're going to have another talk by Kentaro Miyamoto from Riken CBS, this coming Friday, starting from 4 p.m. So it's just a reminder. I have to keep doing this. So I come back soon. Yeah, sorry for very short break, but Sharon, are you available already? Or okay, so yeah, so please ask any questions. You can also raise your hand with some buttons in the bottom. Does anyone have questions? Yes, Sash, can you unmute and talk, ask questions?
Hi, that's very interesting. Thank you. I was intrigued and kind of struggling to understand the split consciousness part. The premise is very interesting, but I was wondering if the only split consciousness is the functional part, because there's like, I feel like there's always multiple personalities inside of us. I'm always arguing with myself. And I was trying to figure out how you would kind of implement that in IIT, maybe look at different subsets of these phi's within the same region or something. Have you thought of that? And also, have you thought of like looking at like maybe multiple personality disorder data or?
Yeah, thank you so much. That's very interesting. And I always want to try that, but I actually can't get such data. So yeah, I mean, I appreciate if you actually let me know. I mean, the location of such data, I mean, if you know. But and so according to IIT, it's okay. I mean, for having the multiple consciousnesses at the same time. Like, I mean, if you have one big phi, for example, around this back area. But if you, for example, can identify another kind of, I mean, moderately big, for example, the area whose phi is also moderately high, then I think that, I mean, corresponding to that level of the phi, it can have a kind of conscious entirety. So yeah, I mean, but from outside, it's so difficult to see if that there are two consciousnesses at the same time, right? So yeah, but I mean, one thing is, yes, I mean, as you actually said, like, I mean, if you use that kind of multiple personality disorder subject, yeah, and to compare, for example, the phi across the different locations corresponding to the different personality, if we can find such areas, right? I mean, that means, I mean, if there is a kind of, I mean, the area that consistently, I don't know, exists there. I mean, I don't know, but if that is, I'm not sure if that is possible or not. Probably that is not possible. Yeah, sorry.
So if you somehow obtain this data, and you have also a data of these diagnosis of, you know, how they usually for treatment, they identify how many personalities one has in the multiple personality disorders. And if the task was to maybe try to predict how many personalities this person has, like, do you have any idea how you would kind of try to solve that problem? Because if you could solve that, I think it would be really interesting. Or is it kind of too far?
Yeah, that's very nice. I mean, yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, yeah, I don't know. So for example, if I use my idea, I mean, the identification of the location, then I'm not sure if I can actually discriminate the two personalities. I mean, because and they can probably overlap, right? I mean, the best case scenario for that approximation method is I actually can identify the several different areas for several different personalities. And if you, for example, check the representation or something like that for each location, then and it corresponds that representation to the what each personality does, then probably we can actually kind of label, okay, this area is for that personality and that area is for that personality or something like that. But I mean, for example, I mean, every time you should have a kind of visual experience. I mean, even if you change your personality, right? So in the sense, I mean, that is not so kind of great idea. Like probably there is a kind of center of the personality that is kind of shared among the different personalities, and one can be dominant at the moment, but that is kind of switched with the other personality. I mean, depending on the, I don't know what kind of, condition that there is, but yeah, right. So one thing, that is actually from too far from the current state of the IIT, but the IIT is not only about the kind of identification of the location, but also for characterization of these contents of consciousness, which are still kind of developed by the Tronis group. Like, and the IIT predicts that the contents of the consciousness is identical to the kind of cause-effect structure. And so if you can, for example, characterize the the cause-effect structure, if you can develop a good method to characterize such a structure, and also you can develop the, how can I say, the interpret such a structure with respect to the each personality, then probably you can track this kind of switching of the personality just by looking at the cause-effect structure, changeable cause-effect structure. Yeah, but that is kind of too far from the current status of IIT. Yeah.
I understand. Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
actually, the such questions triggers me like kind of comments, but so so in our group, we are also trying to get like the scores of schizotropy. That is like a kind of indicative of disintegration. So you know, sometimes hear something you did not intended to say, or something like that. That kind of voice. This is like related to schizophrenia symptoms, but there are some studies saying that maybe we also like as a normal subject, but have this kind of symptoms. So that might indicate that like although it's not like multiple personality to identify, but we at least see how much that is like related to integrations of some consciousness somehow, or I mean the one of the I think schizophrenic symptoms is to integrate or like to disintegration. So might be that is one ways to see how this schizotropy is related to IIT or something like that. It might be related to that is multi personality disorders. What do you think, Shun?
Probably, yeah.
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 Yeah. I mean, like we at least have this integration scores, and the data, fMRI data set. You can try like how much this IIT is disintegrated in those subject, or how much integrated those subjects. But
yeah, that's very interesting. I actually have tried to calculate the calculation of the big five value with the schizophrenia data.
Yeah.
In general. So I'm not sure. The kind of particular symptom of the HE patient has, but in general, if we compare this the big five area between the healthy control versus the schizophrenia patient, then I actually found the inclusion of the frontal area for the schizophrenic patient. So yeah, I'm not sure. The correspondence between this disconnectivity or malconnectivity of the schizophrenia patient's brain and its location, the location of the big five. But there might be, actually the kind of effect of this change of the connectivity to the location of the big five.
Interesting. Yeah, I was wondering, so when it comes to people that are communicating with people, that is also activate the prefrontal cortex, or it's totally different region will be activated, or I don't know that when people are communicating with other people. What do you think? What I thought was, so maybe like schizophrenic malfunction of their symptoms are like a kind of hyperactivation of some lesions, and that it might be related, like similar to when we are talking with somebody, and and like we misunderstood to hear something we didn't actually hear.
Yeah. I see what you said. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very interesting. But I'm not sure. I mean, probably data is not so good. Yeah, so I don't think I found the kind of inclusion, the particular inclusion of the auditory system to the big five, I guess. But yeah,
but not necessarily with maybe this auditory system, but it could be so when you're feeling somebody's nearby, or that kind of intention itself can be misunderstood in the brain, like in a schizophrenic subject, or some people who has this schizotropy tendency. That's what kind of I wanted to ask. Like, have you ever see the when people are communicating and check their file or something?
No, but yeah, super interesting. Yes, I agree.
Okay.
Interesting. Yes.
Yeah, maybe all collaborators are doing this kind of experiment. So maybe we can ask if we can use that kind of data set.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Right. So yes, please ask any questions. Or some you can unmute and ask any questions. Like, we have still some time. Okay, yes, go ahead. You have
another
time.
Question, if you don't mind.
Great, please.
Okay. About the multitasking part. I think I saw there was a correlation between task performance and disintegration. My question is, do you think you can maybe, I suck at multiple tasking. So do you think you can maybe create some kind of feedback loop to kind of look at how disintegrated people are and kind of like assist, or what do you call?
Yeah.
Like create some kind of input or stimuli to assist them to get more disintegrated and to like increase performance.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm not sure if you can enhance the connectivity by the kind of, concurrent inputs to the different modules. I mean, so for example, in this case, like an integrated information is not actually just a correlation. It's a kind of causal relationship between two systems. So if you, for example, put the, the same input to the system, you can see this correlation. But if there's no interaction between them, then you just see this correlation, but there's no interaction, the causal interaction, right? So it doesn't mean that you actually enhance the actual causal interactions. So, but if you, for example, could find a good way to enhance this causal interaction, I don't know how, but if you actually can find that, then probably yes, you can actually assist the task performance with such a method. I'm not sure how to do that, but like better instruction, or I don't know. Yeah. Or probably you can actually do good, I don't know, the good.
I was thinking maybe easiest way would be like some kind of voice assistant that tells you like, try to do this, try to do that, like a personal coach, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Just imagining.
Yeah, that's probably, yes. But yeah, that's, I think, point. I mean, you can probably check what works or what not, just using the integrated information. Like probably this assist is not useful for this particular task. Yeah, just by checking this integration and only the behavior.
Well, but then again, you're trying to listen to that coach, so that's another task. But
yeah. Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Yeah. So Hel.
Thank you. I have one more question, which is basically mostly based on the curiosity, and that is, when we look at the results that are mostly related to the IIT, it seems that there is less emphasis on the subcortical region when these values are being computed. Would that actually imply that subcortical regions are not playing any role in the phenomenon of consciousness? Because there are several other aspects that they show that there are for instance, these kids that they are born with the cortical damage, but they still have affective and emotional reactions to people. So how would that be possible given the results that we have by IIT to be explained? That like animals don't have it, this type of kids may not have it, or no, there is something in between that still requires to be explained.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I mean, I'm just honestly speaking, we don't know, and we think, I mean, the subcortical area is also very important, but we are not sure that is actually included in this big phi area, or it is actually supporting the big phi area to have a particular content or experience.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, in IIT, there is a kind of difference between these two mechanisms. Like one, that is, I mean, directly contributing to create a particular consciousness, which is basically cause effect power inside of this big phi max area.
That's right.
But, I mean, of course, for example, if you don't have your heart, you can't live. So of course, you can't have any conscious experience, right?
Sure.
And yeah, I mean, that is basically kind of same thing. Like if you don't have your subcortical area, probably you lose a lot of the kind of rich contents of a conscious experience. But another question is, then is that actually included in your area that creates a conscious experience itself, right? Like a heart, we are not so sure.
Sure.
That is very important, we know, but I'm not sure. I mean, that is actually mechanisms that creating the conscious experience. Yeah. So, and we are actually investigating if subcortical area is included or not inside this kind of mechanism. I mean, creating the conscious experience. Yeah. So, I mean, to be honest, the answer is not clear. I mean, we don't know, but we actually acknowledge that it's very. I mean, we know that it's very important, and but we have to actually investigate how it contributes to the conscious experience.
So it could be part of the foundation without being actual part of the. So it forms the infrastructure, but not necessarily the all the nitty-gritty thing that actually contribute to become, because like when Hamada-san he was actually mentioning about the schizophrenic, when we think about it, like dopaminergic system is actually having lots of effect for like the schizophrenia to be like the GABA system is there, and then the dopamine is there, like the mismatch, the balance that is being lost, and they're all coming from the basal ganglia area and then those subcortical regions, and then these are part of the consciousness being actually affected. So okay,
I totally agree with you. Yeah. But it's very interesting. Like I mean, if you have the same set of nodes, like I mean, just the back cortical area, the IIT analysis is actually using the condition probability, like the which area constrain which area, right? But this kind of the way to constrain the other area, of course, depends on the other side, meaning the outside of the brain, right? Fraction.
Of course.
There's a frontal and also subcortical area, and so this way of the kind of constraining the other part would be, I mean, strongly affected by, for example, subcortical area, right? That might be kind of, I mean, I don't know, mechanism of the subcortical area kicking in to kind of create a particular conscious experience. But we are not so sure. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. So, does anyone have more questions? I mean, or comment also fine. Like we, just this is the discussion session, so maybe you triggers Shun's discussions. If not, then maybe I'm gonna ask one question. So yeah, I was wondering. So you mentioned like a network structure and an IIT relationship. But also, I was wondering the more information theoretic perspective, how much like this structure is related to maybe information compression, this kind of framework. Have you ever thought about this? Like, there's one paper from Danny Bassett groups, her groups is working on this network structure and how much that, bit informations are can be compressed. And I thought like this maybe like the posterior region has a more higher complex information compression based on their anatomical structures or something like that. I don't know how much that is interesting for you, but yeah, have you ever thought this kind of?
No, sorry. Yeah, I mean that sounds very interesting, but yeah, it's actually very interesting that they found the posterior area has a higher compressibility. Yeah, does it actually relating to kind of redundancy of the network structure or something like that?
Not necessarily network redundancy, maybe, but I haven't like checked the the detail yet. But certain kind of network structures has like a higher compressibility or like lower compressibility. So that is purely like information science papers, but I thought maybe that can be applicable to your studies, how much how this functions of this consciousness as you so maybe like integrations are highly relevant to this compressibility. But yeah, this is just just
yeah, thanks so much for letting me know that. Yeah, I will check that.
Yeah, I will share the paper later. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
I think to some extent that makes sense though, because the Sasai sensei, the paper that the results that you were showing about the graph structure and the network structure, you were actually saying that it seems there are results that says frontal has more of the random, so to speak, graph, and then we have a modular structure in the back of the brain when we go to the posterior. And if it's modular, then there should be a certain level of set subset relationship in there. And if that will be the case, then the compressibility is actually implied, because you can actually consider that the part that is a superset of a certain type of a subset that you have, I mean, completely from a mathematical perspective, then this superset should be able to refine and define what is actually happening on there. So from that perspective, the information of the subset becomes kind of redundant from the correlational perspective. So the superset can actually describe what is happening out there, which then it would go towards the direction of, yes, it might be actually more compressible in a sense of like the information that is the way that is actually flowing because of also the causal effect that we're actually talking. So if you know the causal part, then the effect part would be already by definition given to you. So that actually helps to describe, like, if such a result has been observed, it's not going to be too far-fetched. It can be actually inferred by the fact of modularity that we are seeing in there.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yes, that can be possible. Yeah.
Thank you so much for the adding more comments. Yeah, that's very helpful. Like I just talk my stuff by my intuitions, but
okay. I'm glad that you find
it's much more clear.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually put my the papers that was I was thinking of.
Oh, you posted it?
Yeah, I posted it in the chat. Yeah, can you see that? Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Oh yeah. Oh, thank you.
Oh yeah. Quantifying the compressibility of complex networks. Oh, this sounds very interesting.
Yeah, I mean the
title itself is already Yeah,
there are a bunch of like studies are quite intriguing, and they're very productive, and I kind of jealous sometimes. Yeah, it's very good work. Yeah, I like that as I work too.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing.
Yeah, so
it's very similar to what Sohail just said.
right.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, please, anyone, any comments or like like you can ask why you're coming back to Japan or whatever. So we do not record this, and do not open this to other people, so you can ask questions. Okay, so yeah, I was wondering, Sohail, are you working with Tom Froese or?
Yes. Yeah, I work with Tom. Yeah.
I see. Yeah. So yeah. Okay.
Actually, we are currently working on some stuff on this conscious perception. There are some results that we are reevaluating, and some of the results are looking quite interesting. Hopefully, at some point, we'll be able to send them for publication and then sharing with the with you people also. Then have some feedback on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks a lot. Yeah. Just last February sometime I visited Oyster.
Oh.
Yeah. And so yeah, I was just wondering like
Yeah. Unfortunately,
I
was not there at that time.
Okay.
I joined EXU in May actually, last May. So it's like a couple of months later after your visit.
Okay.
Which is why I lost the chance of meeting you in person. Hopefully at some time in the future.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, we wanted to have more like tight communication, you know,
definitely,
like geographical.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It will be very interesting actually if we can do some collaboration, some like work together, like having like some results. Contributions.
Yeah. So actually, Tom contacted to us to. Not collaboration, but he wanted to talk with us. So we still waiting for his response. But I mean, Tom's response. Yeah, he will have to do some stuff in the institution, and he wants to work together with us at some point. So yeah.
He's a little. I mean, more than a little busy now. So it's it's just a matter of like he's not forgetting for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not forgetting it, but it's just a matter of like scheduling all the things. There are so many things happening at the same time. I will definitely remind him again tomorrow. I'm going to see him tomorrow, and then.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Like I think that is I think a patent issue or some stuff. So he's I know like he has a bunch like so many members in the lab and working a lot of papers. So sure. Yeah.
Well,
So yeah, I actually like we are kind of trying to find the timing for him to talk about his study in Konshishi, Tokyo. But yeah, maybe at some point he's gonna talk. So
well, that would be great. Yeah. Probably he can put his perspective on the consciousness from the philosophical perspective and the results that you're getting from this conscious perception all together, and hopefully you're going to be finding it interesting, and it's going to be opening the scene for like new discussions and new approaches. Yep.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, that's happy to hear.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Great. Yeah. So yeah, everybody kind of hopefully like they kind of had yeah, please ask any questions, anything fine. Like you still have a little bit of time, or we can close of course, but
maybe everybody is hungry. No.
It's hungry. Okay, yeah, sure. Like already 6:30, maybe some people eating dinner. So yeah, okay. So if not, then I would like to close this session, and thank you everybody for coming today. I'm very happy to have you, all of you, and yeah. So we're going to have another talk by Kentaro Miyamoto from Riken CBS, working on more metacognition part. So I think Shun's part is more, of course, related function based, but his talk is going to more related to metacognition. So please come join us. Okay, yeah, thanks a lot, Shun, for the great talk again. And so let's, let's thank the Shuns. Okay, so we are going to, we are, I'd like to have you again sometime. So yeah, thank you everybody for coming again. So yeah, let's close this meeting. Yeah, thank you everybody.
Thank you so much.
See you. Okay, I'm gonna stop the YouTube. Okay, thanks. Okay.